today just wanted to have a chance to wrap up our year of ACE classes together. As I was starting to make my list of all the things that we've covered in the last handful of months here, we've talked about a lot of things. And I think it's a great time, and maybe not the most typical time. I think New Year's, we think a lot about resolutions and what we've been learning, or birthdays, that can happen for us as well. But especially as we prepare to head into a full and exciting summer here at Newport, I think it's a great chance to be together and talk some about what we've been learning and the ways the Spirit has been moving among us in this particular program here. So just a couple reminders of what we're doing. We started our ACE classes back in the fall in September on our series on truth and reconciliation. Hopefully that is less scary to you now than it was at the beginning of September. And just reminding ourselves of the equipment we have already been given, the stories that are already among us, of the ways that we can experience and explore truth together, and how that gives us strength and courage to be together in reconciliation. So we heard stories about South African apartheid, the Rwandan genocide, reconciliation and native land, reconciliation and money, the Charleston Emanuel AME shooting, reconciliation in relationships, reconciliation and incarceration, and then where is truth in this conversation of truth and reconciliation? I'm curious, as we think back together for just a moment, if we have any golden nuggets that stuck out to us from those conversations, or tidbits that we can remember together this morning from our fall ACE classes.
Well, I remember telling you that was crazy and that would be really dangerous, and why would we do that? And that just seems like a really scary topic. I didn't say crazy, but scary, I think.
Sure, yeah.
And I helped lead the class on the Charleston AME and also the Rwandan reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know much about them, so I just was learning and sharing what I'd learned. And one thing afterwards, much afterwards, I thought, boy, if those people can reconcile over that, who am I to say that something that annoyed me that you said or did, I can't forgive you for? I mean, whatever things may have gone on in my life, they're nothing compared to that. And I remember at the time thinking, what does this have to do with us? And it wasn't until much later that I got this sense that, oh, well, it gives you perspective on your own, I can't ever forgive that moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the word forgive is probably the greatest thing, to see some of these people that have been victims of the lack of justice. And they were sitting on these boards to listen on where we can find healing and forgiveness, even though they've been victims. So I think great examples.
Absolutely.
I think that, at least for me, underlying the whole thing was the past few years of history here.
Mm-hmm.
So I was nervous.
Sure.
And
I think I called up Marianne and told her how nervous I was.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We were nervous together.
Well, we were nervous together, and as participants in, I mean, the two of us had our moments. It made me very nervous, and the fact that whatever had gone on here was never mentioned was astonishing to me, because I thought that's the underlying text. That's what we're going to get around to, and we didn't need to. We did not need to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the classes spoke for themselves, and everyone had a chance. I'm sure everyone in their own way, as I did, to kind of come to terms with and let go of it, whatever needed to happen. I thought it was masterful, actually.
Oh, good. I'm really glad. And that, of course, as I was planning this and starting to tell folks, this is what I'm feeling the spirit moving for us to do in the fall. And the fear that overcame all of us, no matter, what your experience was in the hard years here. And a lot of people asked me, are we going to talk about this? And I said, I have no idea.
Which was a great answer. Because if you had said, no, we're not, that would also affect us. So the I don't have any idea was actually.
Yeah, I think, it reminds us all that we don't always have to, push on an open wound to make it feel better. But just by seeing the strength and resilience in other people, and being able to be reminded of the skills that we already had, but probably forgot that we had, and gives us a chance even just to reflect and communicate. And I think that's a lot of what I saw as I was putting these classes together and, finding all kinds of really cool stories that we didn't even have time to include. That a lot of it is about open and honest conversation, even when it's really hard to hear what the other person has to say. And then finding that common ground that brings us together, even if it is as simple as you just happen to live next door to me. That's something that we have in common, and that neither of us are going anywhere, so we're going to figure this out. And I think that's been a beautiful testimony of our work here, as we've had, folks coming back, or even the folks who say, I can't come back to that place. To be able to see one another, to trust that God's love is bigger than our ability to understand or forgive sometimes. And I think we're going to continue to need these skills over and over again for whatever happens next here in this community, but also, in our world. We constantly need truth, to explain our truth and what that means, as well as reconciliation for when we mess it up, because that's going to keep happening too. So hopefully those can be stories you continue to see. And it's one of those things that once we start to point it out, maybe you'll see it more often among us, that we're more familiar to look for those signs of people who are sharing honestly, or people who are willing to make bold moves for reconciliation, to bring people together, or folks who draw boundaries and say that this is where I am and this is where I have to be right now for the health of my own soul. That we can see those things around us more frequently, so that it doesn't seem like such an anomaly, but rather there's more of it around us.
I think your leadership, Kelly, really, was an inspiration to everybody. As soon as you walked in the door, you got on the phone and started calling people, saying, I'd like to have lunch with you. I want to meet you. And you picked, you knew. And
Somebody told you.
That's right. And that was a wonderful example for the rest of us, so I applaud that. I think that had a lot to do. And, you set the table for the conversations.
This is really about you all just praising me and my work. So we can leave now.
One other thing too is, Ethan was talking about forgiveness, and that was a lot of it. But I think for me personally, also the idea of letting go, which is not the same as forgiveness.
Sure.
But it's sometimes hard to do. And it's a step on the way, and it's a useful, positive step. And that in some cases, you just have to let it go and maybe never talk about it again. I know that a lot of the cases where people did address it and talk about it, but there are cases where you can, if both sides are willing to, let it go. And I have an example, nothing to do with the church, but an old friend. And we reconciled recently, and we did not bring up anything about the past. We just let it go. And we reestablished our friendship. And that's progress too.
Absolutely.
About 2 months ago, I sent you 10 or 11 pages involving forgiveness.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And my counselor thought it was helpful, and he thought it was well written, and he was impressed. So I'm glad that I thought you might find something there that you might want to share in a sermon sometime about And actually, they say the person that does the forgiving often benefits more than the person that they forgive. I thought the articles were very, very good.
Yeah, I kept those in my office drawer as a backup for when I need a good story for a sermon. So
Okay.
absolutely, we were on the same page there. Yeah, and I think that's a huge point for all of us to remember, this idea of mutual transformation, right? This isn't, most often, this isn't one side was right and one side was wrong. It's way more nuanced and way more complicated than that. So again, being able to find that common ground, being able to actually listen to understand and not just listen to respond, and kind of letting go of even just our desire to be right or better than other people, is really helpful. And in a strange way, I think that really helped us quite a bit, as we turned the page into Advent and got to talk some about poetry, in our ACE classes in Advent, that sometimes it's not maybe as direct or clear cut, but rather there's a beauty to the lyrical nature of our life together, and however we might experience that. So really glad that we had a chance to do that and prepare us to hear the Christmas story yet again, and that good news of great joy for all people that we continue to figure out what that means for sure. And then if we can even remember now, it seems so long ago, in January, we had a few classes to prepare us for our Beekoff lecture on communal change. And so a chance just to reflect on where we are as a community and what that means for us to be agents of change, the things that we're looking for, the things that we are capable of doing, and also the times where other people are already doing this work. So let's come alongside them. And I don't know about you, but I'm still thinking about the Pixar short that Larissa shared with us during the Beekoff lectures, and the fun little ball of yarn working at the
Button down.
Yeah.
Office.
Yeah, and the ways in which we all have that power to hold the elevator door open and invite someone else in, to meet people where they are, to be our fullest selves, partially for our own benefit, but also for the goodness of the people around us, to also know we're all better when we're our fullest selves, and how that in and of itself can create communal change. And then we tackled another scary topic that most people would rather avoid, evangelism. Whew. Can be very scary, and especially when we have lots of examples of where it's gone wrong, or maybe ways that we would like it to be done differently. And so we had some classes in our Lent series on evangelism and what that means for us today. So we talked some about the history of how we even got this term and where it started in the Bible and how it kind of changed over time. We had what I still count as one of my most fun classes on E versus E, big E versus little e, evangelical, which I think really helps to give us just a better overview of how we talk about things and what's happening around us. And then some of the just plain habits of evangelism and what those things can look like, that it doesn't have to be carrying a Bible in your back pocket or memorizing scripture, but rather using our actions and our words in the world to be a testimony to who God is, and how God loves all of us. I especially loved, even though I was out of town for St. Patrick's Day, Lois's wonderful class on St. Patrick, and just other examples and stories of how this is done, maybe not always in the initial way we're thinking about. And then in the last few months since Easter, we are gifted with this story of leaving the empty tomb. And we have a choice in that to figure out if we want to run away terrified and not tell anyone, like the end of the Gospel of Mark, or if we can find some words and go out into the world to make a difference. Again, I think this kind of brings everything together of what we're trying to do and who we're trying to be as a community of faith and as individuals as well. And so we've had some awesome classes with folks from our community and from some of the organizations we've worked with for a long time who've come to give us just more context of the issues they're seeing and the work that they're doing and how we can come alongside them. Again, that word mutual transformation continues to pop up in my mind, that we're doing this together and we all get to benefit from it. So now we're starting to shift as we'll take a break from our ACE classes in the summer, have a chance to sleep in or maybe go outside for a walk as the sunshine starts to appear for June, July, and August. But I think as I continue to reflect on the topics that we've covered, just a reminder that this is already part of who we are. These topics we've been talking about, the stories we've been hearing are things that have been among us since before time began, right? I think about the dark cosmos before God even spoke a word to make anything come to be. I think there were twinkles of truth and reconciliation, of evangelism and mission, maybe in ways we didn't consider before. And that is certainly true as we think of the history of this faith community and this congregation. The ways that we have come together are really beautiful. On Friday night, a group of us from Newport were at Seattle Pacific's very first ever Pride event, which ended up having to be called the Redacted Fest because the administration would not allow them to use the word pride. There were a couple, oh yeah, Marianne, it was a wild experience. They had some groups and performers that they invited to come that the administration went behind their backs and disinvited to come. And, you know, through all of that heartbreak and just the disappointment of that situation, Friday evening was beautiful. Rainbows and students of every age and size and color just coming to be their fullest selves and be reminded of the goodness in community. It was a really beautiful time. And it was interesting also to be able to reflect, as those of us who are involved here at Newport, to tell students and faculty and community members about who we are, and that this is not a new decision we've made to be inclusive, but this has been part of our DNA from the very beginning. And just the encouragement of the conversations that we got to have with some of these folks on Friday was still filling me up as we're here on Sunday morning.
Was there a program or was it just people talking to each other?
Just people talking to each other. There were two other Presbyterian churches that were there, friends of ours in the Presbytery over on the other side of Lake Washington. And they had some great resource booths, so a couple different mental health groups. PFLAG was there, the Human Rights Campaign. And they had food, and there were a couple student bands that performed. There were the two of the leaders of the Gay Straight Alliance group on campus, because the administration wasn't allowing drag performers to come, but they couldn't disinvite students who were in leadership to put the event on. These two students who had never done drag before decided to dress up and attempt to do a dance, just to honor the idea of drag identities and how that should have been a part of this day, and it wasn't. So that was really fun, and to watch the students just have a great time supporting their friends. It was wonderful.
Did you have anybody who came and spoke negatively to the?
There was literally a couple, so two people that were outside protesting with signs, but no one that came inside, which was really nice. And it was neat to see some of the allied students walk their queer friends out to make sure that they got safely by the protesters. Folks, you know, even some of our own members that made sure to walk me back to my car just for safety. And so it's really beautiful to see love win in that way. And I think, again, as we're talking about who we are and the things that we're learning and the muscles that we already have, I think that's a beautiful testimony in this community that I continue to celebrate and to share as well. And I think it also, in these conversations, hopefully you felt a little bit of movement in your own life, in your own soul of areas of growth and diving deeper, right? There's so many stories that I've learned just as putting these topics together and working with so many great people who helped me put these classes together. Because, by the way, I couldn't do this by myself, if anyone wondered. And, the ways in which we all have room to grow. I don't think there's ever a point where we have reached completion on that. And so it's a good encouragement for us as we're ready and as we're able to continue to learn and to grow together. Excuse me. And I think that's a huge part of the success of this time that we have together during our program year. Whether you knew about the topic before you got here or not, it's a good chance to learn and to share. Hopefully you can think about it during the week as you continue and all the other things that you have on your calendar, that you might start to see the world a little differently, that you might have that brave conversation that you've been putting off, that you might remember to reach out to someone or to stand up in a different way because of what we're learning and sharing in this space. And I found a really fun post a friend of mine shared this week on social media that just really hit it home for me, of the angle at which we approach ways we can grow. And so I wanted to share this with you all this morning. We cultivate the gardens of our grievances. Sometimes when I'm angry or hurt, I want to remain in my garden of grievances. I brood over the things that upset me, replaying them in my mind. I layer grievance upon grievance. I water them, nurture them, and encourage them to grow. I harvest the bitter fruits when the season is just right. It was late June. My Hebrew class began in July. I came home from my retail job and found a box of books on my back porch from Amazon. Great. But it had rained buckets that day, and the delivery driver didn't put the books in a plastic bag. Not great. I was so angry. Most of my books were fine, but my Hebrew workbook was ruined. That meant I had to call Amazon's customer service. I hate the voice menus and the intermittent wait times. It was 8 p.m. I was tired and irritable, but I had no choice. After a while on hold, which my own commentary here can be a long time, I finally got to speak to a live person in the Philippines. Given our different cultures and native languages, I was afraid we would have trouble communicating. And in my anger, I wanted the assurance of being heard. I wanted my audience to feel all of my righteous anger. Do you know what the customer service rep from the Philippines did? He was kind. He apologized. He listened. He spoke excellent English. So now what was I supposed to do with all of my rage? After he offered a refund to refund my money and replace the damaged book, he said, "May I ask you a personal question?" I thought that was a little odd, but wanted to repay some of his kindness, so I encouraged him to ask his question. He asked if I was Christian and why I was studying Hebrew. I explained that I was a Presbyterian seminary student studying to be a pastor. And it turned out he was a church musician who attended a Protestant seminary and was a lay leader in his congregation. It was a very interesting conversation and very different from the conversation I expected. My friend from the Philippines reminded me that I'm a Christian. He reminded me that everyone is my neighbor. We have more in common than I realize. I nearly missed this opportunity to connect and see beyond myself because I was busy tending the garden of my grievance. My new friend practiced grace and hospitality. He invited me into a conversation, a moment of sharing that pulled me out of my anger and oriented me towards God's grace. He reminded me that we all have the power to do this for each other. Perhaps together we can build a new garden.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Right? Again, now we're done for the day. And I think it's so important as we even just named the feelings we had when we saw the topics that we were going to cover this year in these classes. That we can come prepared for, but that can't be true because we can come prepared of, yes, that works sometimes, but maybe not always. And especially I was telling Dory as we walked in this morning that we've been down in Puyallup preparing our house to hopefully go on the market this week to finally get that off of our plates. And I have not chosen kindness most days. Our renters really trashed our house and we had to spend more money than we were expecting to get it even able to be on the market. And I was very much ready to tend the garden of my grievances and complain to anyone that would listen about how upset I was. And then Katie had to go out and run some errands as I was scrubbing literal human feces off of the wall. And she came back and she said, I just feel so much better. And I said, do you? And she went out with the same situation, the same heartbreak of watching this first home we've ever purchased together be completely ruined. All the same work that we both had to do, and it was late at night after full days of work. And she said, well, I went to go pick up that free mulch, and the lady and her son helped me put it in the car. And they shared stories about their day and the things they had been learning and the ways that they were so glad that I was here to come pick up this free mulch. And then I went to Home Depot and I was having trouble finding what I needed. And 3 people actually helped me in Home Depot, which of course I laughed at because I worked there for a while and I felt like I was the only person ever working there. And then she had another experience after that where someone else helped her. And then so she was filled up with stories of the good of her day, while I was brooding over all of the trash we still had to collect and the cleaning still left to do.
Did you say I need a break too?
Yeah, absolutely. I said maybe Katie came at this in the right way of looking for the good things. Looking for the friends who took time out of their day yesterday on Saturday when all of us would much rather be resting or doing something fun, who drove all the way down to Puyallup to help us clean up our house. Maybe I can be reminded of the goodness of the fact that we were able to buy a house in the first place. And I think the work of the church is not too different in my experience. That we can see the ways in which this work is hard and disappointing, that we can't be all the things to all the people, that maybe we're not as big as we once were, or don't have as many young people as we used to have, or insert all of the things that are different. And yet, perhaps together we can build a different garden. Perhaps together we can be reminded of the strength that we have, the stories that already exist around us, to help make a different and a better world together. Not because we can do this on our own, but we can celebrate the organizations and the partnerships we already have of folks who are doing amazing things on just a handful of topics we could cover in the last few weeks since Easter. And so this is an invitation for all of us. Maybe really just for myself, but if you happen to benefit from it, that's great. To just take a moment to evaluate the angle we're coming from. To take a moment to remember and relish in the things we've been able to learn together. And also maybe to listen to that movement of the spirit of what we can do next. Yes, we'll be taking a break from our classes this summer, and we'll go over some of the other things you can do and ways you can be involved in just a moment. But this is also a great time if you wanted to learn more about something, or if you've run across a story in your life, or as you progress through your summer, something that sticks out to you, let us know. We are very open, and as I think I've said in most committee meetings this month, we're not saying no to many things right now, and that's a gift from God as well. And so just a reminder to stay open and stay alert to the good things as well as the hard things that are happening around us, so that we can continue this journey together. I love seeing the number of folks who continue to show up on Sunday morning before worship even starts to come and learn and share together. I love going on YouTube during the week and watching folks who maybe couldn't be here at this exact time, but wanted still to catch up on the things we're learning. My email box is often full of things that people want to follow up on after we've talked about something in an ACE class or something that was mentioned in worship. And I think that's such a cool thing, that this is not a one-time checkbox that is complete, but it's a continued conversation among all of us. And with that, that's a lot of my talking. Wanted to see how we're feeling, the things that are sticking out or sticking up for us. Ethan.
I'd like to just, your intentional thoughts of your, let's say, talking to a live agent for customer service. This is, and I can just speak for somebody that's been in sales as a career of going face to face and the frustration of the chat box and the robot. But I think that rep in the Philippines has been trained on listening skills and understanding, finding something, if it's the book title that you had destroyed, it led to another conversation. But secondly, I think this person could speak with confidence that I am a Christian. And after finding out who you are, and I think what's happened to the church as a whole, boy, if you're a church attender, this is not a good thing to be doing in many people's eyes. And I think our neighbors here, that outside of Nellie, being part of our neighbor, I think we have some really great opportunities here of just knowing that some of our events, that who's invited to the table. And we have an empty chair here. Did we include everybody? So that would be something that I hope what comes out of a lot of this is the training of an ACE class and the footprint that you've given us in leadership. I think we just need to train as many people that want to, come to a Bible study or want to do different things to grow in their own faith journey too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Ethan. Thanks for sharing. Anything else that's sticking out for us or pushing on us gently in our backs this morning?
Yeah, I felt like it was good that we had, not only a variety of topics this year in the ACE class, but kind of had some series where we ran a theme for a few times. And I think that concept worked really good. It really piqued our interest. I know that.
That's great.
Yeah, I love the idea that there was a theme and then different people leading the class, because you can't lead every single one, but you kind of gave us some guidance about things, or in some cases specific videos, other cases topics. And so we were able to take some of the burden off of you, but also just hear different voices but keep on the same theme over a period of time. I like that.
That's right. And hopefully then, it continues to kind of percolate over time. Something new might come up for you. And even when we finish, it was very hard in these last couple of weeks to choose one of the organizations we work with to invite them to come speak, because there's so many that we already work with that are doing great things. And so it was hard just to choose a handful. And that's a great encouragement that this doesn't have to end here just because we're taking a break from the summer, that we can all continue to reach out and learn more about the context and the challenges that these groups are facing, as well as the goodness, the fruits they're seeing from their work as well. That's great.
I'm kind of here to catch up. I've missed a number of years.
Well, you didn't have anything else going on, Betty, so.
I was pleased when I saw on the prayer chain, they were asking for prayers for the one parish, one prisoner program. And I was so happy that we've gone ahead with that after many years of talking about it. But could you tell me just how we're actually involved? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are participating in the One Parish, One Prisoner program with Underground Ministries. So this pairs one church with one individual who'll be released from prison. Normally they do between like 12 and 18 months before their release. And this allows us to build a relationship. So right now, our primary task of our team of about 7 is to write letters. So we all do that. We write letters to our friend Deidre, who's incarcerated currently. And we're just getting to know her. We're learning a lot. Underground Ministries also has modules of learning for us as a team to give us some more information and background on the incarceration system, on some of the barriers that Deidre might be facing, or folks similar in similar situations. So right now it's a lot of learning and relationship building. And that way we will be a safe place that she knows and can trust as she gets released. Right now, the projection is April of 2025. And so we're just getting to know her, and it's been really lovely. I especially loved that she included in one of her letters to the team, she knew already that she could reach out and ask for prayers. She's the one who initiated saying, and I would love if the church would pray for my grandma who just, I can't remember if it was a heart attack or stroke. She knew that already. And she wanted prayers for the steps that she's taking that are huge right now to prepare her for release and transformation. And again, their big word is mutual transformation. So this is not us, white savior complexing, saving her from this situation, but she is already changing us as well. And as we get closer to that release date, and as we get to know more of the specifics of her circumstances as she'll get released, we'll be able to involve the whole congregation a little bit more. But we have no idea what that'll look like right now, since we're just building a connection, which has been really neat.
Has anyone met her in person?
Not yet.
But you will.
But we will, yeah. So right now we're just writing letters. We'll have a chance in the coming modules to be able to, go through the training and screening process to be able to visit her in person. And I think there is also an option now for video chats as well, which could be really neat. So yeah, that's been another cool program that's really opened our eyes to ways we can be attentive to folks who are literally put away so that we would forget about them. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Well, friends, these are lots of good things, and hopefully your minds are turning with stories and experiences of things you've been feeling this year together. And hopefully that will not stop. even as we take a break for the summer. You might be tired of me pushing all of the things we have going on for the summer, but I'm still going to do it because I'm excited. So even though our ACE classes will be taking a break, we will be doing ice cream theology starting in June. So next Sunday will be our first Sunday. We're going to do that after worship, kind of trying out a different time and seeing how that feels. So 11:30 to 12:30 here in the chapel. We'll be doing ice cream theology, so there will be ice cream to be had, and a good conversation about different theological topics that will connect to the ice cream flavor of the week. So it's a lot of fun. This is something my best friend and I wrote together while we were in seminary, and have done in a bunch of different contexts, but we're really excited to do this and to have some good conversation and remind us that we are all theologians, which sounds terrifying. But we all have something to say about who God is and how God has been working in our lives. So I'm really excited to have the chance to share those stories and experiences over ice cream this summer.
Are the neighbors going to get a mailing on this?
Yeah.
We are working on sharing some of our summer events with the neighbors. So we haven't figured out the most effective way to do that yet, but we are working on it. Dora, did you have a question too?
Yeah, are you planning to record those? Or is that not? I mean, you can't get the ice cream over the recording.
Yeah, the ice cream is not the same. I figured this is going to be sort of a trial and error, and we'll see about. Yeah, we'll see, or if folks would like to participate in the conversation but can't be here in person, and we can figure out hybrid options since we have the tools for that. Someone also asked me, are you going to have, like dairy-free or sugar-free options of ice cream? And we're going to play that by the seat of our pants also, depending on who comes and what the needs are. So we'll figure that out together. Also wanted to remind you all that on Thursdays in the month of June and July, we're going to do a refresh and reconnect lemonade stand. Just having some drinks. I'm going to be hanging out outside, probably down on the grassy patch where the Y is at the parking lot. Just as a way to have more conversation with our neighbors as we're figuring out the better ways to communicate, see what people are up to, since we know lots of folks walk their dogs and take breaks from work and things like that. So you all are welcome to join me at any point in time. Thursdays in June and July, I'll be down there at noon. Weather permitting, I guess, is now the asterisk there. But we're excited to have that as another opportunity. Or if you had questions about something or just wanted to come hang out, folks, everyone is welcome for that.
Pastor Kelly, we'll definitely invite the St. Parkers to the lemonade opportunity. I don't think any of them are real theologically bent for the ACE class, the after church event, but we'll let them know about both of them. I think you'll find some will be showing up for the lemonade time.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be great.
And as long as Jack, well, he didn't interrupt you, but he added this. One other thing I was thinking about this summer is a few weeks ago, the Sophia Way new case manager was to come, and he overbooked, and it was, shall we call it a miracle? The following Sunday, we didn't have a program, and so he was able to come that Sunday, and so we graciously had him come, and I just thought that was kind of a little miracle. And
I did too, Sharon. Absolutely.
Very good.
Anyway, I also, if I don't see you all after worship, we're actually going to stay home for worship now that I think about it, because we've got a busy day. But our grandson always calls our church people your people, so it was good to see my people today, our people today. So I'll look forward to what you're going to do with Trinity Sunday in a few minutes, and that'll be fun.
That's great.
Thank you.
But I have a question before. Don't let the roosters off before this, but Do you have any ideas for next fall for ACE?
We are, I am in the process of starting to put that together, but I think we're going to have a fall theme on the concept of identity. So really excited for the ways that we could be reminded of the good and true things about who we are, especially in the back of my mind is knowing that this fall is an election year, and that is just stressful for everyone. And so a good chance to reflect on that and scripture. Yeah, something to hold on to in the midst of whatever these next couple months are going to be for us. So I am excited and happy to hear ideas if you all have questions or thoughts on good things we can share as we approach the fall around identity as well. Yeah, one last plug before we take a break, and I'll switch gears for worship here. If you're still excited to be learning this summer, we're going to have a Learn and Serve Pride event on Sunday, June 23rd. So at 5 p.m., everyone is invited, with the caveat of everyone seeking understanding and inclusion, because of course we want this to continue to be a safe place. We're going to be watching the documentary 1946, which is about the mistranslation of the word homosexual in scripture. And some of the impacts that have, and it's a really great documentary. And after that, we're going to have a potluck, so a chance to talk about what we learned and experienced in the documentary. And then we also didn't want it just to be a chance for us to sit back and be learning, but we want to do something with that as well. So we're going to have a service project piece during the potluck as well, a chance to support local organizations that help queer youth. So it's going to be a really fun evening. We officially have sign-up sheets out in the narthex out there. If you will let us know that you're going to come, just so we have an idea of numbers. But wanted to give a plug for that event. It's going to be really neat, and we're partnering with Overlake Park Presbyterian and Redmond Presbyterian as well. And our whole community is invited. So just wanted to give a shout out for that cool event coming up in June.
And then Pastor Kelly, thank you so much for sending us the stuff on predestination that we had in our lectionary class.
We're still working on that one.
But
yeah, that's really fair.
If you want to just add another thing for us, that your piece on grievances, would I ever love to have a copy of that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that. Yeah, we did talk about predestination this week in our weekly Bible study class on Wednesdays. It was a good conversation, and it is a really tricky topic. So yeah, we'll have one more week of that as well. If you would like to join us this week on Wednesday at 10 o'clock on Zoom. We're doing an open-ended, any questions you have about scripture or theological topics. If you can give me a heads up, that's great. And if not, feel free to show up and see how I respond on my feed to the questions you have. And we'll take a break from that class for the summer as well. But that's been a fun group for us too.
On your fall class on identity, you sure there's a little section on pronouns? I'm still struggling with pronouns.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you all for your time and your energy. This whole year has been a lot of fun for me. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two and maybe had a smile and a chuckle here or there. And I really look forward to the ways in which we will continue to learn and grow together in the time ahead. So thank you all. We'll see you shortly for worship.